Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Roaring Agents podcast. Today, I am joined by Phelan Van Deren. He is a former appraiser. Now he's a real estate agent. And we connected recently. And I was like, oh, I've really wanted to talk to an appraiser for a while. And you're a new agent. Oh, it's doubly good for me and what I like to talk about. So welcome, Phelan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's just get right into the appraisal side.
Mhm.
What got you started in appraisals and when did you start?
Yeah, so I've been an appraisal assistant for the last 3 years, and it's kind of random. So it's like a friend of a friend who I loosely know has been an appraiser for a long time, like 10, 15 years. Um, and I was at like a transitionary period in my life where I needed some job that was different than what I had been doing. And he like randomly, we kind of talked about it like a minute. I shadowed him a few times for like what an appraiser does on a daily basis. Um, and then didn't hear from him for a few months. And then he reached out to me kind of randomly and was like, hey, like I need some help around the office. Would you be interested in kind of helping me out? So yeah, I started coming in and just like 3 days a week and helping him and the team out. It's a pretty small company, and the company's Harper Appraisal, and we're split into two offices. The main office has like maybe 10 uh, licensed appraisers and no certified appraisers. And then our office, we're about to have three certified and one licensed appraiser.
What's the difference between those two?
Yeah, so certification is the easiest to get or sorry, no, license is the easiest to get in the appraisal world. It's standardized nationally, so it's different than real estate. The like requirements to become an appraiser are the same nationwide, but basically it takes a couple years. If you're really on it, you can do it in like a year and a half, and it's really intense, like shadowing and doing appraisal assignments all through whoever your mentor is. So it's quite a bit different than real estate. The bar to become an appraiser is really high,
Yes.
and for good reason. So basically, like a licensed appraiser is the lower rung of appraisers. They can only do certain assignments. They can't do home valuations over a certain amount. It just changed. It's like 1.5 million is the bar where you can't do certain types of properties. So you couldn't do like farms or commercial stuff, and then certification takes a lot longer, like at least another year and a half. And then you can basically do anything. So you can do like large multifamily, you can do any dollar amount, you can do. So like even the owner of our company isn't a certified appraiser. Literally the guy I work for, Min Trung, is the only certified appraiser in our company. And so he gets sent sometimes the worst jobs because other appraisers in the area aren't able to do it. Like there's not that many appraisers, let alone certified appraisers in like the Portland area. So he is pretty in high demand. And so yeah, that's like the kind of how I got into it. Was just kind of random. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Did college for a couple years, studied English and economics. Had no idea what I wanted, and so stopped doing that and started working. And then still didn't know what I wanted to do. Did like sales jobs, did retail jobs, did restaurant jobs, all sorts of stuff. And then kind of found my way into appraisals kind of by accident. So
between FHA, VA, and conventional appraisals, is there a one that most appraisers prefer over those three?
I mean, conventional is the easiest. When you do FHA or VA, because they're government-backed loans, the requirements to do those like the requirements for those to pass is really high. So for FHA, the home has to be like pretty dialed in. If there's like chipping paint or a gash in the wall or anything like that, we have, like as an appraiser, we have to call that out in our appraisal assignment. So yeah, doing an FHA assignment takes a lot longer because you have to be really meticulous when you're going through the home and be like, oh, it's missing baseboard in this area, or there's like paint chipping on the west side of the house, and you have to have photos of all that stuff. So then when you send it to the bank will typically kick it back and say, okay, well, this loan will fund as long as all of those things that the appraiser called out get fixed. And it's the same with VA. So yeah, those ones, they take way longer. It's a lot more work on our end just to try not to miss anything that we might have missed. And typically, like, because appraising is subjective, the appraiser that you get, they may or may not be as meticulous with FHA. Sometimes they'll let stuff slide, sometimes they won't. Most of the, like, how I go through a house is a lot different than somebody else. So when I'm viewing a home with clients and being like, oh, I like, if I'm shopping with an FHA client, when I go through the home, I look at it differently than an agent would, because, you know, I'm looking for these things that an appraiser might call out. And so some of the stuff I'm like, I probably wouldn't, but someone else might call this out. But yeah, I mean, conventional is just way easier.
So let's talk, just to, educate everybody on an FHA. What are some of the bigger things that you see getting caught and that an agent should look out for?
The biggest thing is like exterior stuff, chipping paint on, like, that gets called out the most out of anything. So
Really?
if anything on the exterior has like chipping paint, cracked paint, missing trim, anything like that on the exterior, we have to call that out. So that's definitely the number one, because like the inside could be totally fine, but if the exterior paint is chipping or missing or something like that, it's like such a pain in the butt to go back to the listing agent and be like, hey, like, it didn't pass. You have to like have your seller do this. And then we have to go back out and do a reinspect. But even on conventional, like the things that we have to go back out for are usually like missing carbon monoxide detector, missing smoke detector, water heater's not double strapped. Those things are required for every assignment. So those things get called out very, very frequently. Yeah. And then the agent will ask if they can just send us a photo. Technically, we're not supposed to let them send us a photo.
Oh, really? Do it all the
Yeah,
time.
I know. But the reason we're not supposed to, so the guy I work for, he's very meticulous. So we do things really by the book in our office, and most appraisers don't. Not that that's necessarily bad, but the reason we're not supposed to is because we get paid an extra like $150 to do a reinspection, and it's mostly like for our time that we have to take out of our day to go out there and take a photo.
Mm-hmm.
But if we just have an agent send us a photo, like the buyer's agent, like their client, the buyers are still paying us the $150, but we're not doing any of the work. We're just submitting a photo. So in order to show that we like went out there and did the work, we're supposed to take the photo, but I understand it's pretty common.
So it does not save the buyer the cost on that at all.
No,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it ends up being a speed thing. And what I've done in my photos is I've taken a picture like of the smoke detector, and then I've taken a picture down the hall because I'm that skeptical person figuring someone's going to lie to me. So I proved to them, no, this is the hall, the house it was in.
Yeah, I mean, we just snap a photo of the smoke detector, whatever, when we're in the home. So it's not that big of a deal for the bank. They just need to see it. Although, you know, some banks are different. Some banks, like, they really want all the comp photos to be your photos. And some banks are fine if you just send in the MLS photo. It really depends. On an FHA assignment, it has to be your comp photos. But on a conventional, sometimes you can let it slide with just sending in the MLS. And sometimes if it's a time crunch, we'll send in the MLS photos of our comps. And then if they kick it back, we'll just take the comp photos. But
so a big thing of debate again around real estate agents is whether or not to attend the appraisal. Now, when I was solo, I was a little bit against it because I was like, a lot of appraisers were grumpy. And I was like, I don't want to piss off this person who's going to be doing my appraisal, who's like right near the price going, you know what, that guy's a little annoying.
Yeah.
I didn't want to put things in a negative light. Then when I joined Beltran Properties and I saw that Jamie went to every one of them and he knew the appraisers, that kind of got me past it. And I started asking the appraisers, hey, what do you think? Once I saw that I could talk to them. And what I found was some liked it and some didn't. And we'll talk a little bit more about you later. Is like, this is kind of a lonely job. So you may have liked people being there, but I could tell that some people liked it. But from yourself and from what you've heard from other appraisers, what's the take on that?
Typically, we don't like it when the listing agent wants to meet us out on the property
Hmm.
because, oh, I don't want to offend people. From our perspective, most of the time, the listing agent brings a ton of stuff that just isn't relevant,
Hmm.
or they go like way out of their way to try to like make the home seem better. The perception among certain agents is that they're like really salesy, and so especially if we have like 3 or 4 appraisals like back to back to back to back in a morning, it's pretty annoying to have the agent roll up and like just follow you around while you're trying to like add up square footage in your head and trying to take your measurements. And it's like it's a quick, like, we need to be able to sketch the house really quickly and write down all the finishes and take our photos and then move on to the next assignment.
Right.
So it can definitely be a little annoying to have an agent following you around and like pointing out all the stuff to the house that doesn't matter. Most agents don't know the criteria that we look for in an appraisal
Right.
assignment. So they're like, oh, well, these are original heart. And it's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, that's cool. That's great. It helped you get more money on your house, but like, we don't care about that stuff. So most of the time it's annoying. Sometimes it's fine. Um, Most appraisers I've met are like really not social people. And so
Yeah.
most appraisers, I think, dislike it. Sometimes I understand it from both perspectives because, like, on my listings, I'm like, I really need you to come in at value. And I hope that you do your job the way I would do the job. And so part of me wants to be there because I know the things to point out. But then when I'm doing an appraisal assignment, I don't like when the listing agent is there. So it's a little bit of like,
So
yeah.
let me tell you what we do and then kind of get your perspective is so I show up. I do have a folder and
Mhm.
and so what I do is I hand it to the appraiser, said, here's all the paperwork to make sure I want to make sure that you have all the paperwork you need. And
Mhm.
then there's some of our data in there as well. I don't go into a sales pitch at all. I
Mhm.
hand them the stuff and I say, look, if you need any help, if you need me to move something, open something, help you, just let me know, I'm here. And then I go stand off to the side. If they start to talk, or I'll maybe sometimes say, how are you seeing the market? I want to gauge whether or not they're talkers or not. If they engage with me, we'll have a conversation. If they just want to do their thing, that's fine. And I'm off to the side. And that's about it. What I really want to be is more of adding a human face to this when they're doing it and maybe helping them. And I've been to the appraisals where the access to the crawl space had 17 screws in it. And that appraiser was not going to get in there if I wasn't there.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, I can't get in there. And I'm like, let me take care of it. And went and grabbed a screwdriver out of the garage, got it. So he was able to do that. And in the same house, he had to get into the attic. And it was so sketchy how to get up there. I was like, I will slow you down if you fall. I'm not catching you, but I'll slow you
Yeah.
down. And so to be there for those things. So based on what I told you, what do you think about that?
To me, that sounds fine. Like, I appreciate that. Most agents aren't very good at pulling comps. And so they'll only pull stuff that isn't relevant and like way above
Of
their like the
course. Yeah.
value, which is not how
Yeah.
we pull comps. It's just not how you do it.
Right.
So yeah, most of the agents, it's fine. They'll like leave a packet. The things that we really care about are like, we definitely need to see all the paperwork. It's because like the stream of information comes from like it's like four layers before it gets to us. So it's like, buyer and seller sign a contract, and then that contract gets sent to escrow, and
Right.
then escrow, or like escrow and the lender, and then the lender sends it to the bank, and then the bank sends it to an appraisal management company, and then the appraisal management company sends it to an appraiser. And so like if anybody along those steps misses anything, like an addendum or repair credit, whatever, then we won't see it. And so it's super nice to have all of that documentation from an agent. We also care about like any upgrades that have been made to the house. So if you have like information on that kind of stuff, it's great. We'll typically call and ask about those kind of things. And then whatever comps you want are totally fine. we don't use 90% of them. We might use one or two.
Yeah.
Most of them get thrown out.
Oh yeah.
But no, that sounds good. I mean, yeah, we only need attic and crawl space on an FHA. So that's another reason FHA is more annoying. But if I've been in situations where I like you said, 17 screws in the crawl space, and I just take a photo of not accessing it, and then sometimes the lender will make us go back out, which is a reinspection fee, and we have to bring a drill. But yeah, no, that's nice.
The other thing is, sometimes these appraisals come in $1,000 short, and agents are like, what in the world? You could not make this at price. You came in. Have you had any of those? And can you help agents? And now that you're an agent, you're on this side, so no one wants to kill you anymore. But can you explain how that happens, where you can just be $1,000 off and someone cannot make that number match?
Yeah, I know. I hear it all the time from agents where it's like $1,000 or $2,000 short, and they're like, really? So we, at least in my office, we try as hard as we can to make it come in at value. If we need to pull 10 comps, if we need to go back a year in comps, if we need to and adjust for time, all of those kind of things, like we do everything that we possibly can to get it to make value. We triple check square footage and finishes and stuff like that. So, but really like what it comes down to is once you do your appraisal assignment, all your comps, I mean, we pull comps quite a bit differently. So Min, like the main appraiser, he's been doing it so long, he can pull 10 good comps in 20 minutes. But for most of us, it takes like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours for a complex assignment to pull like good comps. And we have to be able to bracket every aspect of the home. We need to bracket so you start by pulling all your comps and you set a range for what the home will come in at.
Mm-hmm.
Like a high end and a low end, and that's your starting point. And then you only look at comps in between those, so everything else goes away. And then after that, you need to bracket for like room count, but then bedroom count, bathroom count, finishes, square footage, how many levels, lot size, lot location, corner lot or not, how close is it to traffic, are there any commercial stuff? So we have to bracket a million different things. And sometimes it just works out. We're like, well, let me back up. After we do all of the bracketing stuff, like in the report, there's all sorts of different adjustments that we make, like number of offers received. And then we have to make our assessment of quality and condition. And those are just like a 1 to 5. And those are pretty simple. You get like a few little adjustments for things here and there. And I mean, sometimes when you finish your assignment, if you're like a few $1,000s off, then we'll go back through and have somebody else double check and pull comps, and we'll compare our comps and see like why we chose them and why the other person chose them. And then we'll try to adjust again. We'll go back through the entire report and make sure that we didn't miss anything, make sure we didn't miss any like additional offers or whatever. So we'll call the agent and ask a few questions that hopefully they can help us. And then we try as hard as we can to get the report to make value. But I mean, sometimes like even after all of that work, we just can't get it up to where it needs to be. And so it's annoying, but like from an appraiser perspective, if a few years down the line, someone looks at our appraisal report and is like, and calls it into question, like we need to be able to back up all the information that we used and chose. And we need to say like, well, no, we looked at this comp and we didn't choose it for this reason. And we need to be able to back up everything that we do, because our reputation, our income, our livelihood is on the line with every report we write. So we do the best we possibly can. But again, like not every appraiser is the same. Some appraisers will just go through it as quick as they can and try to get the assignment done. But at least in our office, like we try our hardest to get it to make value, because we know how annoying it is for agents. We hate getting those phone calls from a listing agent and being like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it is what it like, do you want to come in and look at it? Yeah. The worst is refis though. Like,
oh, really?
well, because homeowners get the report and I mean, human psychology says that like you value the stuff you have more than an outside perspective does. So everyone thinks that their home is worth so much more, or
until they're getting taxed, then they think it's worth less.
I know. The thing is like people will put like $100,000 into a kitchen remodel to get their kitchen up to like modern day standards and think that all of that 100,000 should go towards the equity of their home. And
Right.
so when they get the report, it's not what they thought it was going to be. And they're like, well, why just put 100,000 into this? And you're like, yeah, but you only increased your equity X amount because, when we compared the comps to other kitchens that are similar in the area, didn't sell for, it's like, refi is the worst because you're talking to the homeowner. Agents kind of are a little bit better about that kind of stuff where like, I get it. But yeah, homeowners are annoying.
So agents have been doing this silly thing the last couple of years. At least I think it's silly. You tell me. Where they put a house up. Let's say it's $400,000. They get 16 offers. It ends up going for 470.
Mm-hmm.
They raise the list price to 460, which I have to imagine only is for the appraiser's benefit, so they don't see that gap. Are you not looking at the history? Are they tricking you, or do you look at the history?
They're not tricking us.
Of course not.
No.
Idiots. Sorry. This was just so silly to me.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of work we do to like verify all the information, like we don't miss something like that. Like if a homeowner on Zillow can see the price history, like your appraiser is going to catch it. It's not, you're not fooling anybody.
It just seems so silly. Like they think they're getting away with something. And I can think of no other reason that they do it except for they think the appraiser's not going to bother looking beyond that.
Yeah, I don't. Well, especially because like if they do submit the other offers, it's like if you listed at 4 and you get 16 offers and like 8 of them are at 430, you're gonna be like, there's no way that 8 people offered $30,000 under your list price, like quote unquote. Like it's silly.
So there's a question I hadn't thought of is, do you want to see all of the other offers that were there? Or is that noise, or does that help verify that, hey, look, 4 other people thought it should be 450 or more. So does that help you?
It helps. I mean, most of the time appraisers don't ask, and you have to make sure that you submit that stuff. We call and ask the listing agents how many offers they got, and we'll write down the number. But if I were you, I would include the other offers with obviously personal information redacted with that packet of information, because it's nice for us to see like, oh, well, all these people waived the inspection contingency and they offered appraisal gaps, and this is the price they wanted it. Because like the job of an appraiser, the job of a listing agent is to get the most out of one person. Like what is the highest price that one buyer is willing to offer for the house, right? That's the sale price. That's your highest price you get. The job of an appraiser is to see like, what is the price that the majority of people in this market would be willing to pay for the home? Not like what's the highest it could possibly be. It's what would the majority of rational buyers say that this house is worth. And so when we go into an assignment, we have to look at it from the perspective of a buyer. We go into a house and it's like, okay, well, what is it? Like, what is the house from an outside perspective? So it's very nice to have all of those other offers to be like, okay, well, there was at least, 6, 8, whatever it is, people who thought, yes, this house is worth at least this much.
Yeah, we always shared those when it was beneficial. If there's one crazy, we just go, oh yeah, there's multiple offer.
Yeah.
Because that happens too.
Right.
Why should agents answer your call for information?
Why would you not want to answer a call for information?
I'm busy. I don't have time to answer stupid questions. That's what.
Okay. That is, some agents treat appraisers like they are the most important person on the entire planet. Like we, not that long ago, I was just in the office overhearing that conversation. It wasn't my like appraisal assignment, but overhearing the call, and it was like an agent, and we just needed to get access to the home. And she was like, do you know how busy I am? I have 5 things under contract right now. And I was like, and the dude was like, I don't care. Like, do you want this one to close or no? Do you want to have 4 under contract? Like, yeah. Answer your phones, agents.
I'm too busy. No, the chances are you're not.
Right. I
I've
mean,
seen your numbers. You're probably not, people.
it's public information. Yeah. The flip side is like, if you don't answer the call for information, then you might come in at a few $1,000s less. And then, oh, then you're not too busy to call us because guess what? Now it ruined your day. But like, no, it was too busy a week ago when I called you.
And this goes back to human nature. Part of the reason that I didn't go to appraisals was that I was worried that I was going to tick off the wrong person. I knew not everyone really cared, but I just didn't want to mess up my appraisal. Human nature is you needed something from me. I didn't answer you. I've got a very unique name. You're going to remember my name most likely. And you're like, hey, isn't that the guy who didn't call me back when I needed that one, whatever? It's a small business. I know there's thousands of real estate agents and appraisers, but it's actually a small business of who's producing and working together. And
Yeah.
your reputation is really all you have in this business.
Mm-hmm.
So take care of the appraisers. You need them on the other side.
Yeah.
And one quick story about an appraiser that I met at a house. He ended up, he and I were very similar. We'd been in the industry for a similar amount of time. We
Mhm.
started talking about the Great Recession and what this was. We talked deep into stats. I'm a big stats guy. And it was one of the best conversations I'd had with an appraiser at that level. And at the a couple hours later, he's like, I'm having trouble finding comps. Here's where here's where I need some help, whatever.
Mhm.
I know appraisers do call, but I have a feeling that he wouldn't have made that call. It probably just would have been a short appraisal. He gave me another shot. And this is kind of my thing about making this a little bit more human. Hey, this is Mike, the guy I just talked to. Seems like a great guy. I'm going to give him one extra shot. I'll hold off, let him see if he can find something different. And we ended up getting the appraisal came in. And I don't think he changed anything for that, but I think he gave me another opportunity.
Yeah.
So I always talk to agents about it's your reputation, and appraisers are a very important part of this.
Yeah.
You got into real estate. Why? Why did you leave, or why did you decide to become a real estate agent?
Yeah. So that's a slightly longer story. I mean, I was interested in real estate since high school. I'm just like I'm technically an introvert, but I'm an outgoing person. Like I'm an outgoing introvert. I like meeting new people. So back in high school, I had thought that this might be an interesting career. The summer between junior and senior year, so I was like 17, my parents bought a new house. I'm originally from the Southwest, so we moved. I mean, like my parents sold their like beautiful ranch house on a third of an acre in Albuquerque, and that buys you like a townhouse in the flats in Portland. So, grew up in like further like east of 82nd, and then my parents moved into South Tabor in 2012. I know they got their house for like 350 and it's now worth like 850. Like it's just ridiculous. Like I'm so mad at their house is, they bought their house for way less than my wife and I bought our house for, and their house is so much bigger than ours. Like anyway, I digress. So I just like tagged along because it was summertime, don't always have stuff going on. And just like loved the agent that they were working with, and just thought it was so fun to like see all these different houses in these different neighborhoods. And yeah, I mean, like the interest started because I was like, oh, seeing houses seems kind of fun. And I really liked the agent and like what she was about and what she did, and, went above and beyond. And I was just like, oh, this is cool. But, in high school, no one's like, yes, real estate is a viable career path. Like, don't go to college. Like my high school experience, like I took a couple AP English courses, and my AP English teacher had a requirement that everybody in her class had to apply for at least 10 colleges. So it's a big deal. Like college was a big deal at my high school, and with my parents. Both my parents are really highly educated. There was a period of time where my dad had been to more years of like post-secondary school than I had been alive. And that was until I was like 20 something. Like he has so many degrees. So both my parents are really highly educated, and for them, college is a big deal. So it wasn't feasible for me to be like, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to become a real estate agent. So, tried my hand I gave it the old college try, and it didn't work out for me. I just didn't enjoy it. Didn't know what I wanted to do, was wasting money. So like I said earlier, like I just started worked in restaurants that were like super busy and fast paced, and had to be, customer facing. You had to be able to tell people like, these are the specials and this is what I really like, and oh, you should try this. And just, you have to be able to connect with people. And then I worked some like retail sales jobs, um, some more specialized sales jobs, just random stuff. And so I enjoyed those. Like I found that I was really good at sales and really enjoyed it, because I think people get the wrong idea about sales. I think a lot of people think that sales is like convincing someone to buy something. Sales is just making a connection with somebody and building trust. That's all sales is. So I found I was really good at that. And then people would just buy the things that I recommended once they knew that I cared about them and once they trusted me.
Well,
Um,
someone reminded me today that sales apparently comes, the root word is Norwegian and it
hmm.
means to serve. So
Oh,
sales in its true form is to serve, but many
yeah,
people have found it to serve themselves and
right.
make a quick buck. And that's why it draws some of those people like that. In my estimation, real estate is not a sales field, it's a service field,
Yeah,
because the only thing I'm selling is me and my ability to do my job. I'm not selling a house. I'm not
right.
selling a neighborhood. I'm not selling a product other than me and my ability to help you reach your goals.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Um, so yeah, I did a couple jobs like that and then got into appraising, and it kind of confirmed like, oh, I do like the home industry. I liked being in homes. Doing the actual appraisal assignment is really boring. I mean,
right.
I discovered like, I love this industry. It was totally like affirming for me to be like, this is great, just not this part of it. Because,
Yeah.
as an appraiser, you see a home, it takes between 30 minutes and an hour, depending on the house and complexity, whatever. And then you spend 8 hours writing the report and pulling comps and all that stuff. So most of it is in an office behind a computer. And so just didn't enjoy that part of it. But I was like, okay, well, I enjoy the industry. I'm interested in this. Like, what if I kind of get into real estate? And I was kind of pushed by a mortgage lender I know, Jason Fleming at Sierra Pacific. He actually hired me at REI when I was like 18 or 19. And then he got into mortgage and then was like, hey, you should think about real estate. Um, and so kind of through a bunch of different things, it just kind of came together where Jason had been trying to push me into real estate, realized I enjoyed it through appraisals. And then, like doing appraisal assignments was just appalled at how many bad agents I had to deal with on a daily basis and how many agents just like wouldn't give me the time of day. And I was like, there are like people who don't know how to buy a house, who don't know how this industry works, who have to work with these people who are not good at their job. And they are making like, some of them are making like a ridiculous amount of money and they're just terrible. And so I was like, I think I could probably do this a little bit better. I'm interested in it. I'm good at sales and connecting with people. And I know that I enjoy the industry. I just want more like face to face. So it kind of just all came together, and then started studying in 2021 during COVID, like a lot of people. And yeah, got connected with an agent at EXP. And then the rest is history.
What was your biggest surprise about what you expected to what it looked like these first few months?
Hmm.
It's been what, 6 months for you?
Yeah, so I started shadowing Deren Benson, the EXP guy, who you know and are familiar with. So I started shadowing him in like June while I was still studying, just to kind of get a feel for like what the industry was like. Um, I think the most surprising, well, I don't think the industry was that surprising because I knew kind of what to expect from an appraisal background. Like I had studied and read contracts every day. I knew kind of what went into it. So that part wasn't surprising. But I think like when I started going out on my own in September, I was surprised at like what it took, I guess. Not that I thought that real estate was going to be easy per se. Um, but like when it comes down to it, so like I said, I studied econ in college, and in economics, like there is a principle of like you get what you pay for. We're all familiar with it. It has a much more technical sounding name, but the basics is you get what you pay for. And it's it's like when you see something that is expensive, you perceive it to be of better quality than something that is cheaper. There have been thousands of studies about this. It's just true with human psychology. We look at price as a reflection of value. And so I was seeing these agents like get paid the same amount no matter how good or bad they were at their job, because it's fixed by the seller. So if you're a buyer's agent, if you are just a door opener, or if you go above and beyond, like you get paid the same 2 to 2.5%, no matter how much work you put into it. So like realizing quickly that I needed to have, I needed to bring value to clients, but how do I actually do that? There's a lot of stuff that you don't learn. You learn almost nothing about the day-to-day business of real estate in real estate school. They teach you very technical stuff that you have to know. I mean, you're borderline practicing law without a law degree.
And they're teaching you how not to get sued, and
Yeah,
that's really all that is.
that's real estate school. There's almost nothing they teach you about day-to-day stuff. So the biggest shock was realizing kind of quickly that I need to figure out what makes me different. Like my sphere is relatively large, and I have a lot of people who are around my age, like mid to late 20s, early 30s, who are getting married, having kids, buying their first house. Like I have a lot of people in my sphere who have worked with me, and I've been thankful for that. But I kind of took my sphere for granted as like, oh, these people will work with me. And so after the second person I knew decided not to work with me, I was like, okay, well, like I had to try not to be offended, because I was like, well, like I've known you guys for years. Like, what do you mean you don't want to use me as your agent? Kind of took that for granted and was like, okay, like why would someone work with me? Like what is the reason other than simply knowing me that someone would actually want to work with me? So realizing that I needed to put together a value proposition for clients and have a really stellar like buyer consultation and be able to spell out like what I do differently, what I offer, and why someone should work with me. And then also just like, I think the biggest shock was just not knowing what the hell to do on a day-to-day basis, right? It's like, if you have 3 or 4 clients under contract, if they're conventional or FHA financed, it's 30 days to close. So after you get them under contract and are done seeing houses and do your inspections,
You're done.
I mean, you're not doing anything for the next 2 weeks. Like you're just sitting around waiting. So it's, the shock of like, what the hell am I supposed to do on a day-to-day? Like, what am I supposed to do today with my time?
Lead gen.
Yeah, I know.
That is what you're supposed to do.
When you're a new agent, you're just like, I guess I'm gonna do something. Like, yeah, that was like a kind of a weird shock of like, oh, if you don't have like a really strong pipeline of leads, like, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Yeah, the number one reason that I find that people become real estate agents is they saw terrible agents, and you saw so many of them. And the barrier of entry is so low. You're like, I can do this and I can do it better.
Yeah.
So the thing with the friends and family is every agent basically comes in thinking, I know so many people, they're all going to use me. This is going to be so easy. And then they don't. Now with you, it's a little bit different. You have a background as an appraiser. And you have a degree in economics. You've shown success other places, but in the end, you're still new. And what we're afraid of is risk. Everyone has their own risk tolerance, and like, love you, but you're new. And I'm not sure that you can make the mistake, that you're not going to make a mistake. Or sometimes they're afraid that they can't have a conversation with you that they need to have.
Yeah.
The financial stuff gets really interesting. I always tell people, look, go talk to your lender. I don't need to know all the finances on that side. It's up to you, but you go have that private conversation.
Yep. You're
going to get more of those friends and family as you show success. Social media is the easy way to show success. I tell the story often about an agent who their sister didn't use them their first year. And it made her mad, caused a little bit of thing in the family. Then in her third year, the sister sold the house. And she's like, so why are you asking to work with me now and not before? She goes, honestly, you kind of jumped around. I wasn't sure you're going to stick with it. And these are those things that happen with family and friends. And this is where social media is our best friend, is we can really promote our success and what we're doing so they can see that and they're unsure. And I
Mhm.
don't know if you did this, but I tell every new agent who's thinking about getting into real estate is talk about your journey,
Mhm.
because it's going to take you 2 to 6 months maybe to get your license, but you talk about how much you love it, what you're learning, you're shadowing someone like you were or whatever. That 6 months is a long time in their head. And so you get a jump on them thinking you're going to do this, you have a passion for it, and you're learning it already.
Yeah.
Did you do any of
I
that?
I wish. Yeah. So I like totally deleted all my social media for a really long time for a few years before I got into real estate.
Mm,
I had just stopped using it because I have a tendency to procrastinate and just work. I work really well under a deadline, but
yeah, me too.
if I don't have a deadline, I push stuff off. And so I realized that I was just wasting too much of my time every day on social media, just like endlessly scrolling through Instagram or whatever. So I like totally deleted all my Instagram and all my Twitter, Facebook, everything. I had no social media. And so I was I wasn't even looking forward to getting social media back when I became an agent, but I knew I needed to. Um, and so because of that, I have definitely put myself pretty far behind. Like I have an Instagram, but I don't post nearly as much as I should. And part of that is I don't want to be the boring agent who just posts like just sold, pending, like buyers under contract, like that kind of stuff I think is really boring. Um, so I didn't want to be the agent who just posted that stuff, but I also just about it. And so I'm so bad about my social media, but I know that it's like a massive free marketing platform that I should be taking advantage of. Part of me
Agents in the
wants,
90s would die for this opportunity, because to get seen by so many people and have this reach, you'd have to pay for a TV ad, and that's super expensive and all this. I know the downside of social media. I know whatever, but it can be what you make it. And, refreshing it can control what it looks like to you, right? You can get rid of some of those bad apples, some of those negative people, whatever. Sorry,
yeah,
you're going to say something else.
no, yeah. Part of me wants to just hire a marketing director and just run my Instagram. I don't want to do it. I'll just send you stuff and you just do it. And
Oh, there's
then
people that do that.
I know, but you have to
It
pay for it. And so I'm like, oh, sweat equity is free, but it's not free if it is free, but it doesn't help if I don't do it, you know?
the other so there's some apps like Buffer, where you can plug stuff in and you can have it set that it's going to post once a day. I think for free you can get like 3 different social media accounts between Instagram and Twitter, maybe Facebook. I can't remember now. And you just put stuff in there and it automatically goes into a conveyor belt. And
Hmm.
so let's say you have 5 things already, and then time comes off, it drops. And then the next one, it drops off. And then you can load it up with things. And so it's a lot less thinking. You just know at 1 o'clock on these days, you can change it up. But
Yeah.
that's one way you could do it and not be so much about you getting on it and getting trapped in the scrolling and all that.
Mhm.
And then the other part is taking that stuff offline. So it can help you get to people.
Hmm.
Where I think social media is important, or at least a good website, is that if Bob says, hey, you need work with Phelan, he's going to Google you.
Right.
And the more that you're out there, he can go, okay. And we want to know we're not working with jerks. And so if you can
Right.
see their Instagram and that they're not kicking puppies and whatever, um, then that works as well. And I think with social media, sometimes we get hung up on not being like everybody else and not being whatever. 2 things is, not everyone sees as many real estate agents as you do because that's your field and you're looking at other real estate agents.
Right.
There's still quite a few. But the other one is, you're not marketing to yourself necessarily. And what you don't like, there's plenty of agents who are succeeding doing that thing. You're like, oh, I don't want to see so many posts. Gary Vaynerchuk has made a career off tons of posting and that kind of attention. And he'll even say, I basically post the same kind of stuff all the time. It's just hitting the people at the right time, and people fall off and people come on and whatever. And this is how you, whatever.
Mhm.
But, you're doing okay. It's just where you want to put your energy.
Right. Right.
Um, Last thing I'll ask you and we'll wrap up is, how do you look? Is it any different pricing a home that you don't have one contract or several contracts to look at and have something to hit? Is it harder without that going on to a listing appointment when you can kind of look at comps and go any different direction? So being an appraiser versus an agent, how do you look at the pricing process for yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like I have an advantage as far as knowing how to appropriately price the market value of a home. So from an appraiser standpoint, it's relatively easy because I know the process. It's a really basic process, but it takes a long time to learn. It's really easy to know how to pull comps, but it's really difficult to master pulling comps. Um, so like I can pull and appropriately bracket to get to market value, like with a few hours worth of work. As an agent, it's a lot different. Um, I listen to a lot of Tom Ferry stuff, and so there's been a few things that different guests on his podcast have said. And the one that I latch on to when I do listing appointments is like a 3-tier strategy for pricing. Like we can price it at the stars, the highest you want to get, and then just hope that the right person sees it and wants to buy it at market value or at list price. The second option is to price it at market value, which I feel like I'm pretty comfortable finding what the market value of a home is and, hoping to get a couple of offers come through, like maybe a little bit above. And then the third option is to price it aggressively and go below market value and try to create that feeding frenzy of multiple offers. So that's become part of my listing presentation. I feel confident, like I said, pricing stuff at market value, but it's about strategy and it's about managing seller expectations when you're doing that kind of a listing appointment. I think to a lot of people, I mean, your house for most people is your biggest asset, and selling can be, even in a seller's market, it can be really scary and intimidating. So I just tell people like, hey, you don't have to accept an offer. Like we're just putting it out there and seeing kind of what we get, how many fish bite. I don't really fish, but it's an easy metaphor. We can just see what the action on it is like. You don't have to accept any offer. Like it's at the end of the day, it's your house. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, what I've always said is that I can make a house look 20% higher or 20% lower if I want.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on how I want to look at the comps and which ones I want to pull, I can really move it around. And so it does become a fixed, I mean, it becomes a moving object. And a lot of agents have trouble. New agents work with a lot on this, is trying to come up with that right price. Do you think that if you pulled 6 appraisers, you guys would all come up with the same price?
I think we would all get within $5,000 to $10,000 of each other. Yeah. I mean, because becoming an appraiser is so much harder and the barrier of entry is so much higher to being an appraiser than an agent.
Right.
You have to be apprenticed for at least a year and a half by an existing appraiser to even become licensed, let alone certified. So because the barrier of entry is so high and because we all have so much time and effort put into it, like before you can even do the job, I think we would all get pretty close as far as pricing it appropriately. But like you said, it's a moving target. So, when you do a listing appointment, if your listing appointment is a month before you guys actually want to list, like you need to reassess the comps. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to go and try to adjust to whatever you want it to be. The hard part for me is like, sellers are attached to their homes, rightfully so. They love their homes. They've, made memories and grown up and changed it and worked on it. And it's a part of them. Like the work you put into a home it's part of you. It's an extension of you and your creativity and your efforts. So I don't want to disappoint a seller and be like, well, I think your home is worth this, because they most of the time think their house is worth more. Sometimes you get somebody and they're like, I have no idea, just price it whatever you want. Those people are great. Shout out to all of those people. But the people who are like, no, I'm only going to accept this for my house, or no, we have to list it this. Those are a lot more difficult conversations to have. I think that my background as an appraiser gives me a little bit more credibility with those people, but it's still difficult nonetheless because they have a price in mind that they want to get or they need to get, or, you know,
Yeah.
Bob's house down the street sold for X and they're, Bob's house is way nicer than their house or something like that. They have all these preconceived ideas about what their home should be worth. And so hitting that moving target at the right time, but also just trying to make sure that you get the listing. Like, I don't want to put myself in a situation where the list price becomes a reason I don't get a listing, but I also need to be realistic with people and with
Right.
myself. And, because of my appraisal background, I think I tend to try to hit that mark as close as I can to what actual market value is. But that's not always the best strategy. And that's not always what someone wants to hear. So it's, for me as a newer agent, it's difficult to try to balance like what I think appropriate market value is based on my experience and trying to manage seller expectations and trying to hit a moving target. And it's all these different variables that in some ways are harder than doing an appraisal, because an appraisal, it's like we have a set way we do it and you follow the same steps and you get the valuation. And, working with people, it's a lot more difficult than working with numbers.
Well, and then the market value, figuring out the market value ahead of time before a bunch of hungry buyers get there is all that different, because some crazy things happen.
Right. And that's what I tell people too. It's, it's a home is like the only reason a home is not going to sell is just exposure. Like the right person needs to see the home. And if that happens to be a really busy weekend with new listings, if it's like the first real spring weekend and, 200 people list their home and it's all in the similar neighborhood at similar price points, you have to analyze your competition as well before you go to list or when you go to list. And sometimes you just get the wrong weekend and a bunch of people list and the right people don't see your home. And sometimes no one lists and you're the only house in the neighborhood for sale. And so it goes crazy, and yeah, it can be difficult.
I forgot I did have one more question.
Sure.
Does dollars per square foot matter that much to appraisers?
No,
I mean, so I knew
not
it.
really. It's we'll look at it as a very, very early base. It's part of how we come to that, like, high, like ceiling and floor for an appraisal, but very, very little does it matter. And it's funny, like whenever, homeowners will come out if they see you doing an appraisal assignment and just talk to you, ask you some questions. And very often I'll get a homeowner be like, so like, what's the price per square foot in this neighborhood? And I'm like, dude, it totally varies. Like, you can expect around this. I'll give them something, it's around whatever, 225, 250, whatever it is, but it matters very little.
I've never enjoyed that, because if that really mattered, things would be much more mathematic with people, and Zillow would be 100% accurate, and we wouldn't need appraisers, and it's all these things are confounding factors in price per square foot, unless you get in a very homogeneous neighborhood. And we don't have a lot of those in Portland, in Portland Metro. You got some of them, but not enough that's going to work all the time. So thank you.
It makes new construction appraisals really easy. Those are the best.
Oh, aren't they though?
New developments, all your comps are on the same street. You just go down the row and take photos of each house, and then it's super easy to get market value for those. But yeah, other than that, it's so hard.
Well, I really appreciate your time today. This has been fantastic. We jumped a lot more into appraisals than I thought, but I had a lot more questions than I thought. Yeah. You've been super helpful. You work mainly the Portland metro area, a lot on the east side. If anyone's got some referrals to come slamming your way because this market backwards and forwards, how can they get a hold of you?
You can hit me up on Instagram. I need to double check that I know what my Instagram handle is because I use it that little, but Phelan V_PDX is my Instagram handle. Phelan.VanDeren@EXP Realty is my email.
And spell Phelan for us.
Phelan. I tried to go with my Instagram. I tried to go with the Gary V with Phelan V. So I was like, it's got a weird last name that starts with V and it works for him. So I was like, Phelan V. I'm like, yeah, it might be something. We'll see. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll be talking again in the future.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch.
All right. See
All
ya.
right. Thanks, Mike.